Scott Steiner was always known for having one of the most insane wrestling physiques of all time. Scott Steiner was a menacing wrestler while tag teaming with his brother Rick, but when he broke away from his brother Rick Steiner to pursue a singles career in WCW, that's when his physique went to the next level. Steiner was truly a genetic freak, and his amazing muscle mass and size carried over to when he joined WWE back at Survivor Series 2002. While Steiner's in-ring abilities were diminishing by the time he reached WWE, fans could certainly still recognize Scott as he maintained his superhuman physique. However, after Scott Steiner was released or fired from WWE back in 2004, Scott's physique has underwent a massive transformation in the years that followed, and now in 2024, Scott Steiner looks nothing like he did during his prime in the business. Scott is nearly unrecognizable now, as he's firstly changed up his appearance by getting lots of arm tattoos. But more importantly, Scott Steiner has lost all of his once impressive muscle mass, and sadly looks like a shell of his former self. However, for Scott's overall long-term health at the age of 62, it was probably a wise choice for Scott Steiner to change up his training routine, as maintaining the kind of physique Scott had 15 years ago would put incredible strain on his body. And honestly, at 62 years old, Scott still looks to be in great shape, although some fans may call Scott's transformation over the years a sad one. At one point in time, former WWE wrestler Ahmed Johnson looked as though he was going to break through in WWE and become one of the top superstars in the company, a future world champion with the look and size Ahmed had, as Vince McMahon was very high on Ahmed Johnson once upon a time in the 90s. However, injuries completely derailed Ahmed Johnson's career in WWE, and he never became the main event player that some officials in the company believed he would become, as Ahmed's biggest accomplishment in WWE was the Intercontinental Championship, which was originally supposed to just be the launching point of Ahmed's career, but it ended up being the highlight of his wrestling career. Ahmed Johnson was a freak of nature in his prime. However, you wouldn't even recognize Ahmed Johnson in 2024, as he's underwent one of the saddest transformations in WWE history. Ahmed Johnson has not only lost all of his once impressive gains in muscle mass, but Ahmed's also put on a lot of weight and just looks like a completely different person nowadays. When you realize that Ahmed Johnson's only 61 years old, you'll realize that his transformation was sincerely sad, especially when you compare Ahmed Johnson to other similarly aged wrestlers from his day like The Undertaker and Goldberg, who are at least very recognizable in 2024 and look good for their age. When wrestling fans think of the greatest physique in WWE history, no doubt Lex Luger's name would come up in that conversation, as Lex Luger had one of the most remarkable physiques of all time. Luger literally looked like a superhero carved out of stone during his prime, and it was no surprise that Vince McMahon pushed Lex Luger to the moon in WWE during his run there, and Luger would find continued success back in WCW after leaving WWE in the 90s. However, as larger-than-life as Lex Luger looked back in the 80s and 90s, his transformation after retiring from the business is shocking to say the least. Lex Luger has had some serious health issues post-wrestling, and as a result, Lex has sadly lost all of his once insane muscle mass, and is now bound to a wheelchair most of the time, looking nothing like he did back in the day. However, Lex Luger has kept a very positive attitude despite his health troubles later in life, and although he's not the total package like he used to be, Lex Luger will always be remembered as a true legend of the business, and he's still signed to WWE as an ambassador and has worked with the company when it comes to improving WWE's wellness policy and spreading the word on the negative impacts of the gear or the juice to prevent other wrestlers from going down the same path he went back in the day that ultimately put Lex Luger's health in jeopardy later on in life. When we think of the saddest ex-WWE wrestler transformations, there's no doubt that Sunny's name is at the top of the list, as her transformation post-WWE has been a depressing one to say the least. In her prime, Sunny was wildly popular among fans for her stunning good looks and charming style, one of the true original divas in WWE history. However, once Sunny's time in the spotlight ended in the late 90s or early 2000s, Sunny's life completely fell apart, and her transformation over the years has truly startled a lot of wrestling fans. Substance abuse issues have essentially ruined Sunny's life after WWE, and she's now serving a 17 or more year prison sentence after a fatal DUI crash in 2022. Sunny looks nothing like she did during her prime years in WWE, and Sunny's downfall after leaving WWE needs to be studied. as it's one of the saddest and most insane downfalls in wrestling history. Batista was without question one of the most popular superstars during the Ruthless Aggression era and early into the PG era in WWE in the mid-2000s. Batista's physique was enough to make him stand out from the rest of the pack, as Batista was shredded beyond belief with an insane muscle mass in his prime at almost 300 pounds and was able to move in the ring exceptionally well for his size and build. Few superstars looked as good as the Animal Batista with the Big Gold World Heavyweight Championship belt. It was always neck and neck regarding who was the biggest WWE star of that time period between Batista and John Cena. Now Batista would end up leaving WWE in 2010 to pursue other aspirations, mainly acting, and would later return to WWE in 2014 and 2019 respectively. And when Batista returned to WWE a few years ago, a lot of fans pointed out how different Batista looked compared to his first run in the company. But those 2014 and 2019 versions of Batista looked way more similar to his prime version in WWE compared to what Batista looks like now. Batista has been a hard-working actor for a number of years, and while he maintained at least a similar physique to the one he had in WWE for a few years into his acting career, the 2024 version of Batista is almost completely unrecognizable, and many fans have expressed their concerns recently as to why Batista looks the way he does right now, as Batista has lost nearly all of his muscle mass that he had just a few years ago, which was already a lot less than he had in his prime. And now Batista looks like a different person altogether, and fans have also pointed out that Batista looks like he has aged a lot since just last year, and not for the better, with some worrying that Batista is suffering from some kind of illness. Well, for any fans wondering why Batista has lost so much muscle mass or looks a bit sick this year in 2024, there's a good explanation for that. Apparently, Batista has been working hard recently to lose a bunch of muscle mass for overall long-term health and to potentially get a more diverse selection of movie roles moving forward besides just the big musclehead roles, as Batista actually wants to act and show his range, and not just be the typical action movie star. So Batista has changed up his workout routines this year and has also recently become a full-fledged vegan, which is a huge change in his diet. Some fans also believe Batista has simply got off the juice, which has led to a massive loss of muscle. But honestly, if that's true, then it's a wise decision for Batista, who's not getting any younger at 55 years old. While Batista certainly looks nothing like he did during his WWE days in 2024, we haven't heard of any health issues or illnesses, which is a relief. And his drastic change of appearance is due to his own choices to better his long-term health and improve his reach in the acting world with a smaller physique. But we got to say he does look a lot older these days compared to just a year or two ago, which is slightly concerning.